What's up, everyone? Welcome to Bilbrons and Dragons. I'm your host, Bilbron Bafflestone. As a reminder, this is formerly Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition Power Gamers Tactics Room. I am undergoing a name change right now, so don't be confused if this is the first time that you've heard about it. So today we're having another episode of my character build series. Today presenting to you Bilbron Alchemist. And I have to say I am very proud to present this build to you today. It was a ton of fun to create and a very difficult nut to crack. I decided to go with straight Alchemist, even though dipping is very intriguing. I went through several iterations that involved a dip because the class does seem to present some weaknesses that a dip can address. For example, it's not a very good martial. It doesn't have access to martial weapons or an extra attack, so it's very tempting to dip into something that gets you those. I did a fighter dip iteration. I did a rogue dip iteration with crossbow expert and sharpshooter, and those were solid iterations. I also did one with Twilight Cleric and with Wizard, because it's a half caster and it needs slots to create its elixirs, so it's tempting to add a full caster class to bump your spell slot progression and get you more slots more quickly, plus fill in certain spells that it lacks, like shield, and those were tempting as well. Also very tempting is Warlock, because for a class that might conceivably have trouble reaching the DPR baseline, just adding a couple levels of Warlock will automatically achieve that baseline. And there's some shenanigans that you can play with their whole short rest to get their slots back thing, recalling that it takes slots to create elixirs. So having that Warlock can be good. I mean, if you are in a campaign that allows, coffee locking and really taking advantage of the number of hours in a day and the mechanics of short rests and stuff, you can knock out a few extra elixirs per day, and that is very intriguing. So by all means, consider adding a dip to the Alchemist. There's ways that you can make it, even better, I think, although that does detract from the things that it gets from its normal progression, and as it turns out, it's pretty good. I want to thank all of the guys in my Patreon Discord, because I have a little Discord. It's not like a big public one. I'm not really interested in that. I'm already part of Treant Monks and Pack Tactics, and those are really vibrant communities, and I really enjoy that, and so I'm not really interested in duplicating that. But as a Patreon benefit, I have about a dozen guys in my private Discord, and I really want to shout out to them because they really helped out with this build. And just generally speaking, man, I mean, it's very hard to, with just one set of eyes, to create anything without making mistakes. And now that I've got these guys kind of, watching my back and, pointing out errors and stuff, it's just tremendously helpful. I'm tremendously thankful. And if you want to be a part of that community, feel free to check out the Patreon. And by all means, like, subscribe, comment, and share if you want to support the channel. So without further ado, let's check out Bilbron Alchemist. So I put the character setup on the screen so you can check it out. And we can see that Bilbron Alchemist will be a custom race, starting with Strength 18, Dex 14, Constitution 12, Intelligence 14, Wisdom 8, and Charisma 8. He comes with Dark Vision, and as always, I'll be comparing our build DPR to a baseline DPR of Agonizing Blast plus Hex, hitting 60% of the time. Also, as a reminder, I present to you the DPR build figures in modular form so that you can see what you are doing round to round based on what you choose to do. And if you want to know what you are doing in what you consider to be an average combat, you're going to have to do a little bit more math, but I've at least provided you the figures that will allow you to do that. The playstyle we are going for here is Melee Martial, and we are capable of both frontline duties, and we're very capable of striking if the situation calls for it. And we're also going to provide some party heals, utility, and support. One thing that we need to be sure to do in character creation is to pick up the Herbalism Kit proficiency with custom background, and the only other mandatory skills are Perception and Athletics. So at level 1, we are Artificers, and as I said, there are no dips in this build. We are going straight Artificer 1 through 20. We start with Magical Tinkering, 2 cantrips, 2 spell preps, and 2 spell slots, For our cantrips, we'll go with Guidance and Booming Blade. For our preps, we'll go with Expeditious Retreat and Cure Wounds. Guidance is self-explanatory, one of the best cantrips in the game, so always add it when you can. And Booming Blade will be our main attack. We add Expeditious Retreat for a mobility bump and a defense against kiting, or to enable superior kiting on our own. And Cure Wounds because, hey, we're supposed to be healers, and it's a good spell. We take Crusher as our starting feat to bump our strength to 18 and give us that amazing 5-foot push plus the other riders. Booming Blade plus the Crusher 5-foot push every round to reliably gain the secondary damage is going to be our main tactic. I'll be calling out all of our main tactics in blue, and note that the Booming Blade DPR in the column only reflects the secondary damage. Any damage added to the base hit is going to be reflected in the mace DPR, which means, of course, that our weapon will be the mace. And I get it, it's not great, it's a D6 bludgeoning, but the class only gets simple weapons, and it's just too much investment to get martial weapons, so we are gonna have to roll with it and make it work, and don't worry, we do. For armor, we'll go with Scale Mail and Dex, and note that we need to start saving all of our gold. We're gonna need it. We need to be greedy little bastards trying to get every bit of gold that we can, because we've got a pretty expensive playstyle. Also note that we are excellent grapplers with our Strength 18 and Athletics proficiency, so always look for opportunities to drag an enemy into something dangerous. Our tactics are pretty simplistic. We are going to Booming Blade every round, but that's fine because we have Crusher that will reliably gain us the secondary damage, so right out of the gate we are double baseline DPR. At level 2, we add Absorb Elements as our prep. It's a great energy defense and nice for a melee martial because it also confers that extra damage. And Infuse item is online. For our 4 infusions known, we'll take Enhanced Defense, Enhanced Weapon, Spell Wrought Tattoo, and Bag of Holding. And our active infusions will be Enhanced Defense and Enhanced Weapon. We will add a familiar through the Spell Wrought Tattoo. This is possible rules as written, but check with the DM as it might have been an oversight by Wizards of the Coast, and he might think that's overpowered, in which case you can take a different infusion. But we are going with the rules as written here and presuming that we can use it to get an owl for the flyby help action to reliably impart advantage on our single attack. That's very important for this build because we are only ever getting one attack, and so being able to reliably get advantage on that is going to increase our DPR numbers and keep us close to double baseline. We will also use our familiar to administer potions of healing, not elixirs, if the DM allows, because I know a lot of DMs aren't too cool with letting things without hands administer potions. Personally, I think that's fine because they can manipulate branches and prey and stuff, but it's going to vary from table to table. See my deep dive series video on advanced familiar tactics for more information about all of that. And we added the Bag of Holding for utility. We might use it someday for carrying stuff, and we might want to use the Bag of Holding bomb tactic someday if it is allowed. Big boost in armor class here. We go to half plate. I'm presuming we can afford it. Maybe you can't at level 2, but obviously you add it as soon as you can. Plus dex, plus shield, plus enhanced defense for a whopping 20 armor class. We can use a shield now because we have infusions and that allows us to cast with full hands. So really nice AC and our damage is still over 50% baseline. No change to our round 1 and 2. We are just booming blading away. At level 3, we officially become Alchemists and Experimental Elixir is online. We switch up our cantrips a little bit to add Thorn Whip and drop Guidance, which I know is almost sacrilege, but there's a point to it, as you'll see. To our spell preps, we add Healing Word and Ray of Sickness. And so Thorn Whip is an elite pull option to combo with the Flying Elixir, because we can use them both to pull enemies 10 feet into the air and drop them for an additional D6 plus prone. So that is obviously pretty awesome, and we can do it on the regular. It is a standard tactic for us from here on out. Healing Word and Ray of Sickness came with the subclass. Healing Word is amazing for that bonus action heal, and Ray of Sickness is terrible. We will never cast that. And again, Experimental Elixir is now online. So the problem with Experimental Elixir is that it has bad action economy, requiring an action to consume. For some reason, they made it that you can apply it to other people only if they're incapacitated, which makes no sense to me whatsoever, but those are the rules as written. That means they are not appropriate for in-combat use unless they grant an overwhelming advantage. And that actually can be the case with the flying elixir on ranged marshals or casters, but generally attacking in round 1 is better. However, on the upside, they are excellent in that there is no concentration required and they will stack with similar effects. So take them opportunistically. If you are initiating the attack, oftentimes you can pre-buff, in which case the elixirs are going to be fine. Now, honestly, they are not too much help to us, but they can be good for the party. Resilience for the AC bump is probably the best one for us, besides the flying thing. Boldness is for marshals with power attack. It doesn't help us much at all. The DPR column shows that it's very little benefit to our power suite. It's only about a +1. So much better served on marshals with power attack. The flying potion is great for ranged marshals and casters to access safe shooting positions. And as mentioned, we can use it ourselves for the Thorn Whip drop combo. The swiftness potion is useful for strikers, and it could be us. Don't forget we can strike. And it will stack with Expeditious Retreat and Haste, which we will add later. Alter Self can be good sometimes. I mean, if you're ever in a situation where you need to operate underwater, or you need to change your appearance for the interaction phase, it can be good. The healing one is not really that much better than Cure Wounds, and especially considering that regular potions of healing are only 50 gold, but it can be okay, I guess, and all of these are going to get a significant buff at level 9. Slight change to our approach. We are still booming blading away, but now we have a bonus action healing word available if we need it. At level 4, we add Featherfall to our spell preps for utility, but also as a placeholder because we're dropping it next level. But more importantly, Poisoner is now online to boost our DPR. I am very excited to find a really cool way to use Poisoner because there is excellent role-playing synergy here. We are all about the poisons. That's why our spell list is full of poison spells, and then we end up getting poison immunity later, and it just is a great add to our concept here, in my opinion. It offers good synergy with our excellent AC because the poison condition imposes attacks at disadvantage, don't forget. And it takes a bonus action to apply, but we have no bonus action clog. This is what will occupy our bonus action going forward. And I know that some people are thinking, wait, bludgeoning and poison doesn't mix. But note that rules as written, poison from the poisoner feat can be applied to bludgeoning. It does not specify in the description whether it's injury or contact poison, and does not specify that it requires slashing or piercing. Since in this game it's specific over general, that means the poison from the poisoner feat can be attached to bludgeoning. But that said, talk to your DM about it. He might consider a mace plus poisoner feat overpowered and want to nerf it. And please note the heavy dose of sarcasm there, because man, someone actually wants to use poisoner and you gotta nerf it. Come on, dude. Now again, that only applies to the poison from the poisoner feat. It doesn't apply to the DMG poisons, but that's okay because the injury poisons are not that impressive and they're super expensive and they just can't realistically be used all the time, whereas the poison from the poisoner feat is just much more cost effective. Although that said, always carry some Essence of Ether. That's like totally the best poison and that is affordable. And please see my deep dive series video on poison for more information about all of that fun stuff. Now, this was the reason that we have been saving our gold. We are going to dump all the gold that we have been saving until now to prep doses of poison. We want to make as many of these as possible. They currently cost 25 gold per dose, but at next level, this is going to drop to 16.7, and it will continue to drop every time you get a proficiency bump. That said, you probably don't have unlimited amounts of these, so use with discretion based on your wealth levels. Also, don't use it against anything with poison immunity. Obviously, it sucks versus poison immunity. Now that said, our DPR is still like 50% of a baseline without it, so it's not like we're exactly helpless versus immunity. And it's sort of nice that the feat ignores poison resistance, but honestly, statistically, that's not much help. Like 30% of all creatures have poison immunity, and it's fairly evenly spread throughout the different CR levels, and only like 3% have poison resistance, mostly dwarves. So that little benefit where it ignores poison resistance isn't really going to come into play too much. It would be much better if it gave half damage versus immunity, which it totally doesn't, but you can ask the DM, maybe he'll say, yeah, that makes sense to him, and maybe Poisoner could use a buff. But even though a lot of things out there have poison immunity, even more things don't, and so this feat is going to help more often than it doesn't. Even when it doesn't, we're still okay, and it just has so much synergy with our theme that we're taking it. At level 5, we enter Tier 2, and I've provided a list of our cantrips, spell preps, infusions known, and infusions active, which I'll do for every tier. And level 5 is a big level for us. We get 2nd level spells and double our slots. To our spell preps, we add Flaming Sphere, Acid Arrow, Blur, and Lesser Restoration, dropping Featherfall and Cure Wounds. Flaming Sphere and Acid Arrow came with the subclass, and I don't ever see us casting either. Flaming Sphere is overrated to me, even with Alchemical Savant, which also comes online this level. I personally would much rather cast Blur and produce damage through Booming Blade plus Crusher plus Poisoner. Speaking of which, we add Blur as an elite defensive option, highlighted in blue because it is our first option for our concentration. Just fantastic synergy with our great AC of 20. And we are still producing well over baseline DPR even while running Blur. So we are combining elite offense and elite defense into the same character. Go Alchemist. We have Lesser Restoration online to heal the appropriate conditions, because that's our thing, and man, Lesser Restoration is really good. And we do add Alchemical Savant, and it gives us a little bit of a healing buff. Doesn't add anything to our offense because we don't blast, and we can't use Green Flame Blade with it because that would require the alchemy tools to be in our hand, which we can't do. Even though I did consider like a Loxodon or a Simic Hybrid approach that could do that, but then I was like, man, this is crazy investment for just to get a Green Flame Blade. Come on, Booming Blade is fine. And note that our poison has dropped to 16.7 gold per dose. So now our round 1 is to Booming Blade or Blur, and to apply poison with our bonus action. And then in round 2+, we're going to be Booming Blading and applying poison or healing word as needed. At level 6, we add Web to our preps as an elite control option, and we get Tool Expertise and an Infusions bump. So to our Infusions known, we add Repulsion Shield and Radiant Weapon, and we make both of those active, replacing Enhanced Weapon, but retaining Enhanced Weapon as known. We now get 2 free experimental elixirs per day, but no change to our round 1 and 2. At level 7, Flash of Genius comes online to bump our initiative and our saves. It's not amazing for us because our intelligence isn't great, but it helps. But do note that you can't apply it to your initiative if you're surprised. No change to our round 1 and 2. At level 8, we add C Invisibility to our spell preps as good utility, but we're going to drop it at the next level, so it's kind of a placeholder. And we get an ASI, which we devote to Strength +2 to max out our combat stat. No change to our round 1 and 2. Level 9 is a big level for us because we get Restorative Agents and 3rd level spells. To our preps, we add Gaseous Form, Mass Healing Word, Haste, and Revivify, dropping See Invisible and Lesser Restoration. Gaseous Form and Mass Healing Word came with the subclass. Gaseous Form is useless, but Mass Healing Word is useful sometimes. More importantly, Haste is online as our primary concentration option going forward. Blur will be retained as an alternate option based on our slots and the scenario, but between them both, we should hopefully have enough slots to last an entire normal day of adventuring. Revivify, pretty self-explanatory for a healer, which we are. Always nice to have 2 party members with access to it in case the caster is the one who dies. So us and the cleric is going to be pretty good for that, hopefully. And Restorative Agents are online to greatly buff our elixirs. The temporary hit points that they now confer makes them a lot more useful, like way more useful. And we get Lesser Restoration as an always-on thing, so we can drop it from our preps. Note we got a proficiency bump here, so our poison cost now drops to 12.5 gold per dose, and no real change to our round 1 and 2, except now Mass Healing Word is an option for our bonus action. At level 10, we get another cantrip, so we are bringing Guidance back. To our preps, we add Tiny Servant, which is intended to be a little helper that's going to manage our spell storing item at our next level, and is also good to help distribute potions of healing during combat. You can't do that with elixirs, but you can do that with potions of healing. So these Tiny Servants are intended for utility and defense. They are not intended to be deployed offensively. But of course you can if you want. We're doing just fine without them. We get an Infusions bump, so we add Cloak of Protection, Helm of Telepathy, and Winged Boots, dropping Radiant Weapon. Our active infusions will be Enhanced Weapon, Enhanced Defense, Repulsion Shield, and Cloak of Protection, leaving the others for special occasions. Our enhanced weapon and enhanced defense each bump to +2, making our numbers even more awesome. And Helm of Telepathy and Winged Boots are so good for special occasions. See my deep dive series video on Helm of Telepathy for more info on that one. It's game-breaking, just ridiculous for interactions and in gathering intel, like you can find out anything. And Winged Boots, obviously one of the best uncommons in the game, so nice options and definitely go-tos if we actually pick up real magic items along the way where we don't need to spend our infusions on weapons or armor and such. Magic Item Adept is now online, and this is crazy good. 4 attunements is crazy good, man. This is obviously going to depend on the table, because if your 4th is like a Staff of Power versus a Ring of Water Walking, it's going to make a big difference. But magic items are really, really strong, and to be able to attune to 4 of them is really crazy sneaky good. And we can now create quick and cheap magic items. That is actually really sweet, because rules as written, we can now craft 4 healing potions in 1 workday for a whopping 50 gold pieces. 12.5 gold pieces each. And we can apply or distribute these to ourselves or allies with familiars and tiny servants. You can't do that with elixirs, but you can with potions of healing. So we are going to make tons of these. Tons and tons and tons. This is like a go-to thing for us now. Now ask the DM how you spend your 24 hours a day. Maybe you can get a day of crafting in addition to a day of adventuring all on the same day. Because presumably you're adventuring 8 hours a day, right? And if you exceed that, you're going to get exhaustion levels, just like with travel, I would think, because I think adventuring is even more strenuous than travel. And honestly, I think that it's kind of silly to presume 16-hour workdays. I mean, who would stand for 16-hour workdays? We're people. We need time off. So I think generally it's like 8 hours of work, 8 hours of play, and 8 hours of sleep. And there's no reason to me that you can't craft during those 8 hours of play. Obviously, this is up to your DM, but to me, there's nothing stopping us, rules as written, from cranking out tons and tons of healing potions. So that's what we're going to do. And see if your DM will let you make other kinds of potions. I mean, this part is entirely up to the DM because those require recipes and such. They're not like potions of healing, which have their own dedicated description on how to make them. But he might go for it. I mean, it is our thing, and it is a class feature. So if you can get some potion recipes and then can start cranking out potions of Dragon's Breath and potions of Giant Strength, and I mean, there's really good uncommon potions. And it would be cool if you, as an alchemist, could make them and deploy them in battle. But again, that's up to your DM, but ask. For sure ask. No change to our round 1 and 2. At level 11, we swap out an infusion and drop Bag of Holding to add Necklace of Adaptation. It's a nice one to have for special occasions. More importantly, Spell Storing Item is now online. This is one of the best abilities that Artificers get, and we are going to load ours with Fairy Fire to give a consistent buff to the entire party. We're going to give it to our tiny servant to weaponize its action and its concentration, which has good synergy because it's got 60-foot blind sight, so it can notice and target invisible creatures or hidden creatures. And that's just going to be a fantastic always-on buff that will benefit our entire party and is now part of our round 1 and 2 actions. At level 12, we add Dispel Magic to our preps as a caster must-have. And as a feat, we add Lucky for sweet rerolls. It's one of the best feats in the game. I always try to add it. And I did consider Intelligence +2 here, but I just decided to go with Lucky. I felt like Intelligence +2 was fairly marginal for us and the way we're built. I mean, even though it helps, I thought Lucky helped more. And I also considered Resilient Wisdom to close that hole because we do have a pretty big hole in the Wisdom save department. But our infusions will eventually help with that more, and Lucky also helps with that. So I went with Lucky here. No change to our rounds 1 and 2. And at level 13, we add 4th level spells. To our preps, we add Blight and Death Ward, both of which come with a subclass. And while I don't ever see casting Blight, Death Ward can be useful sometimes, but we don't really have a slot because we are using our single 4th level slot to upcast Tiny Servant to get 3 of them. Again, not intended for offense. These are about distributing our potions of healing, which remember we are cranking out tons of potions of healing, and for other utility and such. And now, since we got a proficiency bump, our poison costs only 10 gold per dose. At this point, I feel like we should have an unlimited supply. We should be rich enough, and it's cheap enough to just use it all the time. At level 14, we add a cantrip, which will be Mending for utility. We will add Summon Construct to our spell preps as a useful summon option. They're always nice to have, and Summon Construct is decent. We get an Infusions bump, so we add Amulet of Health and Gem of Seeing to our Infusions known, and we activate the Amulet of Health to give us a massive bump from Con 12 to Con 19. That takes us from 81 hit points to 129. Oh my goodness, that's great. Almost 50 hit points in one bump. And our Constitution and Concentration saves are awesome. So I love Amulet of Health here. And Gem of Seeing is a nice utility option if we ever need it. And Magic Item Savant is now online. We have 5 attunements, no restrictions on items. That is just crazy good. I just want to emphasize over and over, that is crazy good. It is not reflected in the build at all, but 5 attunements. That is almost double the normal amount of attunements, guys. 67% more. That's just so good. Even if it's not a high magic campaign, that's just so good. No change to our round 1 and 2. At level 15, we have Chemical Mastery come online to buff our defenses and add a greater restoration and heal option for us. And we do get 3 free random experimental elixirs per day at this point. No change to our round 1 and 2. At level 16, we add to our preps Resilient Sphere and Stone Shape, devoting our ASI to Intelligence +2. It's time to finally start raising it to get that Flash of Genius and Alchemical Savant bumped up. At level 17, we enter Tier 4. To our spell preps, we add Cloud Kill, Raise Dead, and Wall of Stone, dropping Stone Shape. Cloud Kill and Raise Dead came with a subclass, but they are nice adds. Cloud Kill is a cool offense, great synergy with our role-playing concept, and nice synergy with Chemical Mastery and Alchemical Savant. And Raise Dead is always nice when you need it, right? We added Wall of Stone as one of the best walls in the game, especially because it can become permanent. And our final proficiency bump knocks our poison cost down to 8.3 gold per dose. At level 18, we add to our preps Big B's Hand as a highly versatile spell that can create offense, defense, a grapple, or a great push. We get an Infusions bump, so we add to our Infusions known Ring of Protection and Dimensional Shackles, and we make active the Ring of Protection. We are also now Magic Item Masters for 6 available attunements. Gonna beat that horse again. That is just so good. So good. Will vary by table, but even at the worst table, it's gonna be so good. At level 19, we get our final ASI to bump our intelligence, and to our preps, we add Transmute Rock. It's one of the best controls in the game, no concentration. And at level 20, we add Animate Objects as a good offense, and like the last decent spell available. And we get Soul of Artifice online for ridiculous saves, and a Quasi-Death Ward. Make sure to max out our 6 attunements, but man, look at those saves. That's just like, oh my goodness, Soul of Artifice is cool. I like that. So that's it. Bilbron Alchemist. It's a character that doesn't dip, but turns out to nonetheless have superior DPR, starting from level 1, well above baseline, that has great defenses in a sky-high armor class with buffs like Blur and Haste, and really cool healing abilities with lesser restoration and greater restoration and healing word and all of that, and great utility through the elixirs that can support the party, can bump up the marshals with their power attack, can bolster ranged and casters, got that cool Thorn Whip flying combo. I mean, I think the character works. It's strong at all levels, and we didn't have to dip to do it. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Are there any ways that I can make this even better? And, thank you so much for watching. This has been Bilbrons and Dragons. I'm your host, Bilbron Bafflestone. See you next time.